I helped Ethan Cole build his empire from the ground up, but right before our wedding, he confessed he was in love with my half-sister, Chloe. I agreed to break up, but on one condition. He had to help me win over his business rival, Dominic Vance. Are you insane? You've been chasing me for 10 years and never got me. Is this your way of getting back at me? Ethan's handsome face was etched with disbelief. I retorted defiantly, Dominic is taller and hotter than you. I stopped loving you ages ago, now I'm crazy about him. Ethan laughed, calling me delusional. Everyone knows Dominic Vance is completely out of everyone's league. No woman has ever managed to get close to him. So you have to figure it out. If you help me win him over, I'll sign away my inheritance rights and hand over our billion-dollar empire to you and Chloe. I turned away, pretending to be nonchalant, but tears instantly streamed down my face. Of course, I knew the chances of getting Dominic Vance were zero. I just wanted a mutually destructive way to release all this tangled, unspoken love and pain. But to my absolute shock, Dominic Vance took my hand under everyone's watchful eyes and asked, "What date are we getting married?" "This is my fiancée, Eleanor Hayes. She likes you, Mr. Vance. She likes your movie star looks, your decisive demeanor in business, the mature charm that settled in you over the years." Ethan's handsome face was pale with fury as he read the love letter I'd written to Dominic. He'd helped me write the letter, and all my fancy jewelry and designer clothes were bought with his platinum card. He skipped a major international meeting and drove me to the city's most exclusive restaurant, personally arranging a candlelight dinner, all to help me confess my feelings to Dominic. Dominic let out a cold laugh. "Is today April Fool's Day?" Ethan's jaw tightened in a visible struggle, as he tried to appear nonchalant. "I'm not kidding. Eleanor really likes you. I'm helping her pursue you. You can leave now. Don't interrupt my time alone with Mr. Vance." I coldly dismissed Ethan, watching him disappear into the heavy rain. His back was lean and tall, more mature and charismatic than when I first met him 10 years ago. Back then, he was fresh out of college, interning at my father's company during summer break. His blue shirt was faded from washing, his eyes clear and stubborn, and he worked meticulously. I saw his character and talent, promoting him from a poor kid to the youngest vice president. "He says you like me, but your eyes clearly still love him," Dominic commented softly from beside me. His face was strikingly handsome, his eyes deep and profound. He sat there, like a god veiled by mist. Just then, Ethan looked up at us from downstairs. I immediately, shamelessly, sat on Dominic's lap, wrapped my arms around his neck, and made it look like we were being intimate. "I apologize, Mr. Vance. I had to pretend I wanted to pursue you because it was the only way I could get some alone time with you. My real intention is to discuss a partnership. I'm begging you, please drop Ethan and invest in me." I didn't know if it was my imagination, but Dominic's eyes seemed to dim slightly. "You should know, I'm signing a contract next week to invest $5 billion in Ethan Cole." Of course, I knew time was critical. So I immediately pulled out the documents I'd brought, passionately introducing the company I had secretly founded. "I'm collaborating with University PhDs. Our technology is more mature than Ethan's team's, and it's 100% capable of commercial incubation." Dominic flipped through the documents, a smirk playing on his lips. "Everyone says you're a love brain, but I never imagined your own company would be so impressive." I forced a bitter smile. "My father is incredibly sexist. He doesn't have a son, so he'd rather hand the company over to a male relative, a nephew, than to me. At first, I poured everything into mentoring Ethan, thinking we could run the company as a husband and wife team after we got married. But then he fell for Chloe Miller, my father's illegitimate daughter with his mistress." Dominic calmly reminded me. "The mistress you refer to is now your father's legal wife, and Chloe is the pampered Hayes heiress, adored by your father. If Ethan marries her, he'll still get the Hayes group." That was what I resented the most. I had poured my heart and soul into Ethan, only for it all to become Chloe's gain in the end. Years ago, when Chloe and her mother officially moved in and took over, it gave my mother a sudden heart attack and she died. I hated them. Ethan falling for Chloe was the ultimate betrayal. I want revenge on them, and now only you can help me. Drop Ethan and invest in me." My eyes burned with fervent pleading as I looked at Dominic. But his gaze was cold. He gripped my waist and gently moved me from his lap to a nearby chair. "I detest mixing personal feelings with business. Think clearly and then come back to me." Dominic gracefully departed, and I stumbled out after him, shocked to find Ethan still waiting outside the door. "I saw you throwing yourself at him, Eleanor. I never thought you'd be so shameless." His eyes seemed to blaze with fire. I sneered. "What? Are you jealous? Waiting so long downstairs just to mock me?" Before he could answer, Chloe's syrupy voice drifted from the nightclub across the street. "You're mistaken, Ellie. Ethan was waiting for me, not for you." She wore a shimmering sequin dress that hugged her curves, a stark contrast to my stiff suit dress. Ethan's tone with her was utterly doting. "Babe, aren't you cold?" He took off his coat and draped it over her. She whined coquettishly. Not enough." Ethan, warm my hands for me. Ethan immediately cupped her hands, gently blowing on them to warm them. I used to cry and demand to know why he loved her and not me. His answer was that I was always focused on work, like a grim, hardened man. Only a drama queen like Chloe could make him feel that spark of romance. I'm totally wasted, Ethan. Take me home now. Chloe climbed into the passenger seat of the Ferrari. I snapped. Get out. Ethan drove me here for my date with Dominic, and now he has to take me back. Besides, I bought him this car. Let Ethan choose, darling, Chloe pouted, then leaned closer to me and hissed maliciously. You pathetic shrew, you lost again. You can spend all the money you want, but you'll never make Ethan love you. And even if you stripped naked in front of Dominic, you wouldn't get him. Sure enough, Ethan chose her again, driving the sports car away with a roar. Just then, a few burly guys burst out of the nightclub, grabbing my hair and demanding money for drinks. Your sister didn't pay just now. She told us to find you. Hand over the cash or else. They leered, their dirty hands reaching for me. I immediately screamed, let go of me. Ethan. Help me. Ethan hadn't driven far. I was sure he could see the scene in his rearview mirror, but he didn't stop. He hesitated for just a second, then sped away. It was just like in our relationship. He unhesitatingly abandoned me, choosing my lifelong enemy, Chloe, leaving me sleepless night after night, crying until my eyes were dry, and laughed at by all my enemies. Stop screaming. Come play with us, pretty girl. The club thug's foul-smelling breath was close to my face, his greasy hand gripping me tight. I finally snapped, pulling out the documents from my bag, and using them as weapons, wildly striking at them. The sharp edges of the papers cut their skin. My sudden fury forced them to retreat, step after step. When I turned, I saw Dominic Vance's Rolls-Royce parked by the street. After confirming I had repelled the thugs, his car started and drove away. He had witnessed everything, yet chose to stand by. A wave of frustration washed over me. I realized I didn't have the charm to make him like me, but I had to use the pretense of pursuing him to secure an investment. If I could just persuade him to drop Ethan and invest in me instead, I could turn the tables, climbing above Ethan and even my father. Unexpectedly, a video of me fending off the club thugs was filmed and posted online, even trending on social media. Hashtag Hazeris Meltdown, hashtag DumpheadFiancédrama. The media gossiped wildly about my history with Ethan, saying I was a rich heiress who supported a poor boy, only for him to get rich and dump me for being a dowdy old hag. Asterisk slap. Asterisk Ethan slammed a stack of newspapers onto the table in front of me. The headlines and trending topics are all calling me a backstabbing scoundrel. Eleanor, you knew this was a critical time for me to lead the Hayes Group in fundraising and going public. How could you buy hit pieces to trash my name? I sneered. If you don't want people to know, don't do it. The media isn't wrong. I poured my heart and soul into you for 10 years. How are you repaying me? Ethan knew he was in the wrong, but his expression remained cold. You asked me to help you pursue Dominic, and I agreed. But he doesn't like you. What more can I do? That just means you haven't tried hard enough. You need to push harder. I grabbed his tie, manipulating him. At tomorrow's spring auction, I want to buy him a gift. Whatever I set my sights on, you'll get it for me no matter the cost. The auction was packed with high society figures, and Dominic Vance was there too. He was seated regally in the center of a private box on the second floor. Ethan, Chloe, and I sat in the front row, allowing me to clearly see that the first item up for auction was a piece by my mother from 30 years ago. Madame Hayes was a renowned jewelry artisan during her lifetime. Her early works are cherished by collectors worldwide. Today, 3 pairs of her earrings are returning to the market. I bid frantically, but every time I made an offer, Chloe would raise the price, clearly trying to outdo me. Help me. I shot Ethan a look. You promised me. You said you'd get me whatever I wanted today, no matter the cost. Ethan met Chloe's eager gaze and softly refused me. I agreed to help you bid on a gift to win over Dominic, but would Dominic even care about these earrings? Don't be silly. My heart was burning with anxiety. I regretted that all my cash flow was tied up in company operations, leaving me no extra money for bidding. In the end, Chloe successfully acquired all 3 of my mother's pieces. The wings on these butterfly earrings are too big. I don't like them. Chloe, with a flick of her wrist, cut the delicate gold filigree, and 2 gemstones tumbled to the floor. I was stunned. Are you crazy? How could you ruin perfectly good jewelry? I bought them so I can do whatever I want with them. Chloe cackled with glee, then broke and cut the other 2 pieces of jewelry, throwing them to the ground. Whispers and snickers broke out around us. Chloe's just trying to get a rise out of her. Exactly. Eleanor's mother clung to her status as the legal wife back then, making Chloe an illegitimate child for years, and her mother a publicly scorned mistress. But now Chloe has really made a name for herself. Everyone knows she's Richard Hayes' favorite daughter. They say Ethan loves her, and once he marries her, Eleanor will surely be kicked out of the Hayes Group. Eleanor is truly useless. No money to participate in the auction, so she can only watch her own mother's jewelry be destroyed. My heart bled in that moment, watching the jewelry my mother had painstakingly crafted, day and night, being desecrated into garbage. The auctioneer on stage presented the next item. A Breguet tourbillon timepiece from the early 19th century. Starting bid 1 million. Dominic Vance on the second floor was the first to bid, immediately raising the price to 3 million. It seemed he liked this watch. I instantly joined the bidding, going back and forth with him, pushing the price to 20 million. Ethan's face beside me turned dark. Chloe, unaware of the situation, scoffed at me. Don't pretend to be rich, you can't afford it. As Dominic bid a high price of 30 million, I directly shouted, whatever it takes. The entire hall gasped, shocked that I had the money to snatch something coveted by the billionaire Dominic Vance. My next sentence pushed the atmosphere to a climax once more. I'm paying with Ethan Cole's card, and I'm giving this watch to Dominic Vance. Everyone's jaws dropped as they watched me use Ethan's platinum card, instructing the staff to deliver the timepiece to Dominic Vance's box on the second floor, accompanied by a bouquet of red roses, a symbol of affection. Within half a day, the news of me spending Ethan Cole's money to pursue Dominic Vance swept through the entire high society circle. That evening, I was dressed to the nines. As I walked into the dazzling garage, Ethan rushed up to block me. Do you know what people are calling me now? They're calling me a humiliated cuckold, spending money to help my fiancé get another man. I gave him a sidelong glance. Better than being called a backstabbing scoundrel, isn't it? I'm actively taking the blame for the relationship, letting people think I'm the one cheating. Shouldn't you be on your knees thanking me? Ethan gnashed his teeth, forcing out a cold laugh. You spent my money. Did he like it? The he referred to, of course, was Dominic Vance. I lit up my phone screen, shaking it twice in front of him. See that? Dominic sent me a message 10 minutes ago. 8 p.m. tonight, Grand Zenith Hotel, room 8808. Ethan's face instantly turned ashen. I swaggered, patting his face. What are you gawking at? Hurry up and drive me to my date with Dominic. I believed Dominic Vance had been impressed by my sincerity. For this, I had prepared even more detailed business plans, determined to persuade him to invest in my company tonight. Ethan, driving beside me, frequently glanced at me in the rearview mirror, then suddenly spoke. Why the Grand Zenith Hotel of all places? I paused for a moment, then remembered. The Grand Zenith Hotel was where I had booked our wedding a year ago. The wedding date was next Thursday. Even the invitations had been sent out. I had bought wedding favors worth hundreds of thousands and spent millions decorating the venue. Now the groom was driving me there for a date with another man. I sneered. Do you even care? The beach under that old bridge is where we first fell in love. 5 years ago, I almost drowned saving 2 children. Even the paramedics said I was gone, but you wouldn't give up. You desperately gave me CPR and artificial respiration, and I actually came back to life. The moment I opened my eyes, I saw the tears on your face, and I swore then and there that I would love you forever. Back then, Ethan and I truly were life and death companions. As I spoke, I felt a sense of weariness. Never mind. It doesn't matter. You've probably forgotten all about it anyway. I bet even the rocks we lay on have been swallowed by the sea. Ethan, who had been silent, suddenly slammed the accelerator, turning the sports car around and heading for the highway exit. I gasped. Are you crazy? I'm going to be late. Take me to the hotel. His dark eyes held a stubborn glint. Weren't you just talking about reliving the past by the sea? If you didn't want to, why bring it up? The car radio was broadcasting a hurricane warning, advising residents to stay indoors. I screamed that Ethan was insane, rushing to the beach in a hurricane to die. He sped to the beach and forcefully dragged me out of the car, searching for the rocks that had witnessed our bond in life and death. Heavy black clouds pressed down on the sea, giant waves roared, and a severe storm warning had been issued. Yes, I'm crazy. Why are you provoking me in such a twisted way? When you asked me to help you pursue Dominic, I wanted to kill him, he yelled at me. I scoffed. Don't pretend. You only agreed to help me pursue Dominic because I promised to sign the agreement giving up my inheritance of the Hayes family assets. You dream of seeing me out of the Hayes family, so that after my father dies, you and Chloe can have the entire Hayes fortune to yourselves. I didn't. Ethan's eyes were wide with desperation. He tightly cupped my cheeks, his breath close to mine, full of a mix of longing and suppression. You just don't understand me, actually. Actually what? I felt a strange tension. Just then his phone rang. My darling Chloe, flashed on the screen. Ethan didn't hesitate for long before answering. The unspoken atmosphere between us instantly vanished. I knew it. Everything that followed was just as I expected. Chloe said she was scared of the thunder and needed Ethan to come to her immediately. No way. Your job right now is to take me to meet Dominic, I reminded him. Chloe heard my voice and started crying even harder. I'm so scared. Oh no, I accidentally fell, and my leg might be broken. Ethan, please take me to the hospital, okay? Her acting was awful, Yet Ethan actually believed her. He immediately decided to drive to her house. What about me? Dominic is waiting for me. How am I supposed to get a ride in this weather? I angrily demanded. Ethan looked me directly in the eyes, stating seriously, I'm tired of playing this game with you, Eleanor. You'll never get Dominic Vance. The women who've chased him over the years were A-list celebrities, beauty queens, even daughters of powerful politicians or foreign nobility. Eleanor, you don't stand a chance. Besides, isn't your ultimate goal just to make me angry? Well, you've achieved your goal. Give up. There's no way I'm letting you see Dominic today. He gave me one last deep look, then truly abandoned me, driving off to rescue broken-legged Chloe. The hurricane was closing in, chilling my thin clothes to the bone. My entire heart felt cold and desolate. From then on, my feelings for Ethan Cole were nothing but hatred. The wind howled in my ears. Staying here would be life-threatening, but I couldn't even stand steady. I could barely move an inch against the wind. In despair, I saw a helicopter flying towards me against the wind, like a small boat battling the waves, perilous yet determined. The person inside opened the cabin door and extended a hand to me. The strong wind ruffled his hair, revealing his handsome, refined face. It was Dominic Vance. He said, I agree. Now come with me. The wind off the bay did not just howl. It screamed, a physical wall of pressure that threatened to tear my feet from the wet gravel. Above, the helicopter hovered, a fragile beetle of carbon fiber and steel, battling the descending gray wall of the hurricane. The rotors whipped the rain into a blinding, horizontal mist that stung my face like needles. I looked up at the extended hand. Dominic Vance's fingers were long, dry, and entirely steady despite the terrifying sway of the cabin door. His dark eyes, usually veiled by the cold, polite detachment of a man who ruled 100 boardrooms, held a sharp, dangerous focus. I didn't hesitate. I reached up and grabbed his hand. His grip was like iron. With a single fluid pull, he hauled me off the wet rocks and into the warm, leather-scented interior of the cabin. The heavy door slid shut with a solid, pressurized thud, cutting off the roar of the gale to a muffled, vibrating hum. I collapsed onto the cream-colored leather seat, my wet clothes clinging to my skin, water dripping onto the pristine wool carpet. Dominic reached beside him, pulled a thick cashmere blanket from a compartment, and threw it over my shoulders. He didn't ask if I was all right. He didn't offer any cheap, comforting words. He simply picked up a tablet from the armrest, unlocked it, and handed it to me. The $5 billion investment in Ethan's project was officially cancelled. 10 minutes ago, Dominic said, his voice quiet, steady, and perfectly audible over the hum of the rotors. My legal team is currently drafting the transfer of those funds to your independent firm, Haystack. I clutched the blanket to my chest, my teeth still chattering from the cold, but my eyes remained fixed on his face. Why? I rasped, my throat raw from the salt wind. Yesterday you said you detested mixing personal feelings with business. You said my project was just a tool to make Ethan angry. It was, Dominic said, leaning back, his sharp profile silhouetted against the dark, rain-streaked window of the helicopter. But a woman who is willing to stand in a Category 3 hurricane just to keep an appointment is either a lunatic or a genius. And in my experience, the line between the two is where the best profit margins are found. He turned his head to look at me, a faint, nearly imperceptible smirk playing on his lips. And besides, I've always found Ethan Cole's public arrogance to be slightly tedious. I wanted to see what he looks like when the floor beneath him begins to turn to liquid. I looked down at the tablet. The draft agreement was already there, bearing the digital seal of the Vance Group. My heart, which had been frozen and heavy for 10 years, gave a sharp, clean twitch. I picked up the stylus and signed my name, Eleanor Hayes. Thank you, Mr. Vance, I said. Don't thank me yet, Eleanor, Dominic said, his voice dropping to a low cold register. Next Thursday was supposed to be your wedding day at the Grand Zenith Hotel. The venue is still booked under your name, isn't it? Yes, I said, my brow furrowing. The deposit is non-refundable. Good, Dominic said, his eyes flashing with a dark, beautiful light. Because next Thursday, we are going to hold a press conference in their main ballroom. We'll let the market know exactly whose hands the Hayes legacy is resting in. The Grand Zenith Hotel was bathed in the warm, golden glow of thousands of candles. A year ago, I had personally spent millions decorating the grand ballroom for my wedding to Ethan. I had ordered white roses from France, custom-milled crystal glasses from Italy, and a 3-tiered cake that was currently sitting in the industrial kitchens downstairs, completely forgotten. Ethan arrived at the hotel at 2 p.m., wearing a bespoke black tuxedo. He walked into the lobby, his shoulders straight, his jaw tight. He expected to see me waiting by the entrance, clutching a bouquet of dried roses, weeping and begging him to call off his relationship with Chloe. He thought that because I had paid the non-refundable deposit, I would use the day to stage a dramatic, pathetic attempt to win him back. Beside him stood Chloe, wearing a tight, shimmering white gown that looked suspiciously like a wedding dress. Her leg was not broken. She wore only a small, elegant silk bandage around her ankle, a pathetic, childish prop to justify her accident from the night of the storm. Where is she, Ethan? Chloe pouted, her voice carrying that familiar syrupy whine. The lobby is so quiet. Are you sure she didn't just run away to avoid the embarrassment? She's here, Ethan said, his voice rough and raspy. He kept checking his phone, his chest tightening with an irritation he couldn't quite explain. The staff said the grand ballroom was opened at noon. She's probably inside waiting to make a scene. He marched toward the double doors of the ballroom, his hands clenched into fists, ready to deliver the final, crushing lecture that would put me in my place once and for all. He pushed the doors open. The ballroom was packed, but there were no wedding guests. Dozens of reporters from the city's top financial papers sat in rows of velvet chairs, their cameras pointed at the high-tech stage. On the stage, a massive LED screen displayed the logo of Hayes Tech, my independent firm, flanked by the prestigious blue and gold crest of the Vanguard Group. I stood at the podium, dressed in a sleek, tailored white pantsuit, my hair pulled back into a neat, professional low bun. Beside me sat Dominic Vance, his sharp, handsome face perfectly calm, his glasses reflecting the flashlights of the cameras. We are officially announcing a $10 billion strategic partnership between Hayes Tech and the Vanguard Group. My voice carried effortlessly across the silent room, amplified by the high-end sound system. With the support of Mr. Vance, our team will begin the immediate commercial incubation of our mature tech patents that were secretly developed by my mother during her lifetime, and are 100% owned by me. The room erupted into a flurry of camera flashes and urgent whispers. The Hayes Tech patents? A reporter from the Wall Street Journal called out. Does this mean the Hayes Group's current fundraising for their IPO is invalid, since their technology relies on those same patents? The Hayes Group has zero legal right to use my mother's designs, I said, my gaze locking onto Ethan as he stood frozen in the doorway. My father, Richard Hayes, illegally transferred those patents to his nephew 3 years ago. My legal team filed a formal patent infringement lawsuit this morning. The court has already issued a temporary injunction to freeze the Hayes Group's IPO. Ethan felt as if the floor beneath his feet had suddenly turned to liquid. He took a clumsy step back, his face turning a sickly, translucent white. The silver spooner who had spent his entire life commanding boardrooms was suddenly staring at the ruins of his empire, ruined on the exact day in the exact room where he had expected to watch me beg for his scraps. Eleanor, stop this. Ethan burst through the security line after the press conference, his pristine tuxedo disheveled, his collar damp with sweat. He ignored the guard's warnings and grabbed my arm as I walked toward the VIP elevators. You're out of your mind, Ethan roared, his dark eyes wide with a frantic, desperate rage. The patent lawsuit is a lie. Your father had the right to transfer those designs. You're trying to destroy the Hayes Group just because I married Chloe. I slowly stopped, turning my head to look at his hand on my sleeve. Before I could speak, Dominic Vance stepped out of the elevator. His presence was so immense, his tall, broad-shouldered frame so commanding, that the two bodyguards beside him didn't even need to move. Dominic reached out, his cool, gloved fingers gently but firmly wrapping around Ethan's wrist. With a single fluid twist, he forced Ethan to release my arm. Mr. Cole, Dominic said, his voice like dry ice. If you touch my business partner again, my legal team won't just file patent lawsuits. We'll file charges for physical harassment and corporate espionage. And I don't think your remaining shareholders have the stomach for that kind of publicity. Ethan stumbled back, holding his wrist, his face turning a deep, angry crimson. Vance, she's manipulating you. She's a love brain who's been chasing me for 10 years. She spent my money to buy you that Breguet watch at the auction. I know, Dominic said, a dry, elegant smile playing on his lips. And I am currently wearing it. He lifted his wrist, showing the exquisite, gold-milled timepiece resting against his crisp white cuff. It's a beautiful watch, Mr. Cole. The tourbillon movement is remarkably precise. I must thank you for your generosity in funding Eleanor's gift to me. Ethan felt a physical pain in his chest, a sudden, sharp spasm that made it hard to breathe. He looked at me, then at Dominic, realizing that the game he thought he was playing with my feelings had actually turned into a trap that was slowly closing around his neck. Eleanor, Ethan whispered, his voice losing its sharp, commanding edge, turning small and hollow. The beach, the night of the storm. You said you saved me 5 years ago. You said you loved me. The beach is gone, Ethan, I said, my voice dry and perfectly flat. And the woman who saved you died on those rocks next to her mother's memory. The only thing left in this room is the woman who is going to buy your company for pennies on the dollar next week. I stepped into the elevator beside Dominic, the heavy glass doors closing between us, cutting off Ethan's pale, sweat-stained face as we ascended to the penthouse. The downfall of the Hayes Group was not a quiet affair. Without the $5 billion investment from the Vance Group and with their primary technology frozen by the patent infringement lawsuit, the company's stock took a devastating 20% hit in morning trading. The board of directors, desperate to save themselves from bankruptcy, held an emergency session on Tuesday morning. "We have to settle with her, Richard." One of the older shareholders, a gray-haired man named Thomas, yelled at my father. "She has the Vance Group's backing. She has the original patents. If we go to trial, we'll lose everything." My father, Richard Hayes, sat at the head of the long mahogany table. His face was pale and gray, his hands trembling as he clutched his cane. He had spent his entire life treating me like an annoying, dowdy obstacle because I was a woman, preferring to pour all his hope and resources into his nephew and his mistress's daughter. Now he was staring at the ruins of his legacy. "Where is Chloe?" Richard asked, his voice rough and raspy. "Where is my daughter?" "She's at the jewelry boutique on Fifth Avenue, Richard," Thomas said, his voice dripping with cold disgust. "She spent $60,000 of company funds this morning on a new diamond necklace to match her auction gown. She said she was too stressed by the legal papers to attend the meeting." Richard's cane fell from his hand, clattering against the polished stone floor. At that exact moment, the double doors of the boardroom were thrown open. I walked into the room, my boots making a sharp, confident sound on the marble. Behind me came Arthur Vance, the chief legal counsel, and 3 forensic accountants from the Vanguard Group. "Good morning, Father," I said, sitting in the empty leather chair opposite him. "Eleanor," my father whispered, his eyes clouded with age and sudden clawing panic. You can't do this. I'm your father. I raised you. You raised me to be a servant, Father," I said, my voice cool and flat. "You raised me to watch my mother die of a heart attack while you brought your mistress and her daughter into our house. You gave my mother's jewelry to Chloe so she could melt it down into garbage." I pulled a small velvet box from my pocket and set it on the mahogany table. I opened it. Inside sat the 3 pairs of butterfly earrings my mother had crafted 30 years ago. They were no longer broken. The delicate gold filigree had been perfectly restored by a master artisan in Paris, the sapphire wings gleaming under the boardroom lights like real butterflies ready to take flight. "I bought them back from the auction house, Father," I said. "And I bought the remaining debt of the Hayes Group from your primary lenders this morning." I slid a thick leather folder across the table to him. "You have 48 hours to sign the transfer of the Hayes Group's remaining assets to Hayes Tech," I said. "If you sign, I will allow you to retire in comfort to your estate in the country. If you don't, my legal team will file the embezzlement charges against Chloe and her mother before 5 o'clock. My father looked at the documents, then looked at the restored butterfly earrings on the table. A sudden, harsh sob tore from his throat as he picked up the pen with a trembling hand. He knew there was no choice. The Hayes family empire, which had been built on my mother's blood and my 10 years of silent suffering, was officially mine. The winter wind off the bay was biting, carrying the sharp, cold smell of snow and dead seaweed. Ethan stood by the old bridge, his wool coat half unbuttoned, his dark hair disheveled. His hands were stuffed into his pockets, his fingers searching for the small, cheap gold ring he had bought when we were 20, the one he had promised to replace with a diamond once we got rich. He looked at the gray, churning surface of the sea, the rocks where we had lay 5 years ago, the ones that had witnessed our bond in life and death, had indeed been swallowed by the sea, buried under meters of cold, shifting sand. "Eleanor," he muttered to himself, his voice lost in the wind. He pulled out his phone, his thumb hovering over my contact. He tried to mind-link me, but the screen displayed only a flat, empty gray box. I had blocked him, deleted him, and erased myself from his digital world with the precision of a surgeon. "Ethan." A high, syrupy voice drifted from the sports car parked by the road. Chloe stepped out, her face pale, her hair messy. She wasn't wearing her shimmering sequin dress. She was wearing a cheap, off-the-rack coat, her hands clutching her phone as she ran toward him. "Ethan, please," she sobbed, throwing herself into his arms. My father's assets have been frozen. The bank is seizing my car. They said Eleanor is going to have me arrested for embezzlement. You have to help me. You have the $5 billion project." Ethan slowly pushed her away. His eyes were cold, hollow, and filled with a deep, permanent disgust. He looked at her disheveled face, and for the first time in his life he didn't feel the spark of romance. He felt only a heavy, crushing irritation. "The project is gone, Chloe," Ethan said, his voice flat and dead. "Dominic Vance canceled the investment 3 weeks ago. Hayes owns our patents now. What? Chloe gasped, her mouth opening in shock. But you're the vice president. You're the genius. You can just write a new proposal. I was only a genius because Eleanor was standing behind me, writing the code, while I took the credit, Ethan said, a dry, bitter laugh escaping his lips. I spent 10 years treating her like a grim, hardened man, while she was the only one holding the foundation of my house. And I threw her away for you. He looked at the silver-plated medal on his chest, then unpinned it, throwing it into the gray, churning water of the bay. Go home, Chloe, Ethan said, turning his back on her as he walked down the gravel path. Because without Eleanor, there is nothing left to save. The grand ballroom of the Plaza Hotel was bathed in the warm, quiet glow of the winter sunset. The signing ceremony for the acquisition of the Hayes Group by Hayes was underway. The room was filled with lawyers, executives, and reporters from the city's top papers. I sat at the head of the long mahogany table, dressed in a sleek, midnight black velvet suit with the restored butterfly earrings hanging from my ears. Beside me sat Dominic Vance, his sharp, handsome face perfectly calm, his gold brigade watch ticking quietly on his wrist. My father and Chloe's mother had already signed the documents, leaving the room in a quiet, defeated silence. Only Ethan remained. He stood at the end of the table, looking at the contract in front of him. He looked thin, his eyes sunken, his hands shaking slightly as he picked up the pen. Eleanor, he whispered, his voice cracking. Is there really no chance for us, even as business partners? I didn't answer him. I simply took a sip of my water, my eyes cool and indifferent. Dominic Vance stood up, his tall, broad-shouldered frame blocking Ethan's view of me. He looked down at Ethan, his dark eyes filled with a quiet, absolute authority. Mr. Cole, Dominic said, his voice flat and hard. The transaction is complete. The Hayes Group is officially dissolved, and your contract as vice president has been terminated. You can leave now. Ethan looked at him, then looked at me, a sudden, desperate terror in his eyes. He realized that the game was over, and he had lost everything, his company, his title, and the woman who had loved him with her life. He signed his name on the paper, his hand trembling so violently he could barely finish the stroke. Ethan Cole. With that single signature, the 10 years of my silent suffering were officially closed. He turned and walked out of the room, his figure disappearing through the double doors, leaving only Dominic and me in the quiet ballroom. Dominic walked over, resting his hand on the back of my chair, his scent of cedarwood and cold winter wind enveloping me. He looked at the signed merger document, then looked down at my face, a slow, elegant smile playing on his lips. Well, Eleanor, Dominic said, his voice dropping to that low, mature whisper. The acquisition is done. Your mother's legacy is safe. Yes, I said, looking out the window at the snow-covered streets of Manhattan. The storm has finally passed. Dominic reached down, his cool, strong hand gently catching mine, his fingers wrapping around my hand under the warm light of the chandeliers. Then, my queen, he murmured, his eyes shining with a dark, beautiful light. What date are we getting married? I smiled, my heart finally warm and clean. Next Thursday, I said. The Grand Zenith Hotel is already paid for.